Located northeast of the main island of Hokkaido, the northern territories consist of Etorofu Island, Kunashiri Island, Shikotan Island, and the Habomai Islands. They belong to Hokkaido. However, these Japanese territories are currently under illegal occupation by Russia. Former island residents who were forcibly expelled by Russia's former Soviet Union continue to convey their first-hand experience, expressing their deep connection to their home islands and calling for their return to Japan. The wish to return home to the Northern Territories. Japan discovered these islands before Russia's discovery of them. In the early 17th century, the Principality of Matsumae had recognized these islands as part of their domain and had gradually established administration over them. In 1855, Japan and Russia signed the Treaty of Commerce, Navigation, and Delimitation, confirming the naturally established boundary between the islands of Etorofu and Uruppu. However, in the midst of World War II, the Soviet Union declared open war against Japan in violation of the Japan-Soviet Neutrality Pact, which was still in effect in August 1945. After Japan accepted the Potsdam Declaration, the Soviet Union began to illegally occupy the Northern Territories between August 28th to September 5th. Approximately 17,000 Japanese residents living there were forced to leave by 1948. Yasuda Aiko is from Etorofu Island.
That morning, my mother told me to go gathering kombu seaweed. Our house was fairly close to the sea. I would go there early in the morning to collect the quite thick kombu, and my mother would pound it until it became sticky and mushy, almost like natto beans. I remember we would pour that over rice and eat it.
Yasuda was born in November 1939 in Shibetoro village, located in the northern part of Etorofu Island.
There was a bridge right behind our house. When you crossed it, I remember there being a long stretch of sandy beach. In the shallows, flounder would suddenly glide in. They quickly bury themselves in the sand. You could see a little bump where they were hiding, and I remember stepping on them with my foot to catch them and playing like that.
This is a map of Shibetoro village as it was at the time, created through the sharing of former residents' memories.
There was a main street running through the center of the village, with houses lined up on either side. There was a temple, and if you went straight down from the temple, you reached the sea. When you went straight the other way, the school was at the end. Next to it was a shrine. I can still recall that entire view. It feels like I can still see it.
At the end of August 1945, Soviet troops suddenly entered the village.
I don't know how many Soviet soldiers came into the village, but each of them would quarter in a vacant room in people's houses. They didn't have places to stay when they arrived. One soldier stayed in our house as well. There was something like a reception room right next to the entrance, and I remember him setting up and sleeping there. I think he stayed quite a long time. There was what you might call a base camp very close to our house.
Later, Yasuda was sent to an internment camp in Sakhalin. In 1948, she was able to board the very last repatriation ship to return to Hakodate.
When we boarded that Japanese ship, they served rice. It's strange that I remember the food so clearly, but that was when I felt we were truly going back to Japan. Until then, we'd had bread or something like that. Maybe it was black bread. I don't clearly remember that part, but I vividly remember being served rice.
The movement demanding the return of the Northern Territories began soon after the end of the war. The 1956 Japan-Soviet Joint Declaration included provisions including the return of the Habomai Islands and Shikotan Island, but the two countries could not reach an agreement on the territorial issue. As it stands today, visits to graves on islands by former residents and their families, exchange programs between Japanese citizens and Russian residents of the Northern Territories, and free visits have been carried out for former Japanese residents and their families. However, following its aggression against Ukraine, Russia has refused to engage in negotiations toward a peace treaty, and the situation is still at an impasse. In the 2010s, Yasuda visited her home of Etorofu Island several times to pay respects at gravesites.
I don't actually have a family grave in Shibetoro village, but I participated in visits to graves together with everyone else. During the visit, I felt for the people who had died in Shibetoro village, whose graves had been left unattended for so long. We hadn't been able to do anything for such a long time, and then we were back. I felt a deep sense of guilt about that.
She also took part in exchange programs with Russian residents living on Etorofu Island.
We went, but that was all. As we were leaving, one of the Russian women said, "Please come visit our island again." I heard that as we were departing, and it really hit me hard. Our island. It's the island where I used to live.
Matsumoto Yuzo is from Etorofu Island.
It's an island blessed with incredibly rich resources and magnificent untouched nature. Its natural environment and resources, including fisheries, forestry, and even mineral resources, make it a wonderful island. It's often called the island of lakes and wetlands. Everyone agrees. The water quality there is exceptionally good. Mineral-rich water can be drunk naturally. In some places, small dams were built. And instead of digging wells for drinking water, people would draw the water directly to their homes and live that way. Most of our play areas were the school grounds or the rivers in the sea. It was there that we caught fish surrounded by nature. And on the school grounds, we played kick the can or ball games. In winter, we skied and rode sleds. That's how we played.
Matsumoto was 4 years old when the war ended, and Soviet forces invaded Etorofu Island in August 1945. By coincidence, he was in Sapporo with his mother at the time, visiting his older brother who was hospitalized there.
We waited until after my brother recovered. Then we tried to return, and we were told that no ships could leave from Nemuro. Especially that children could not be on board. We were told that under the circumstances, there was no guarantee of safety if we went home, so we gave up on returning for the time being. That meant my father and the rest of my family remained on the island. My father often recounted that when Soviet soldiers entered, from August 29th, 30th, 31st, through September 1st, the Soviet forces conducted house searches for 4 days. In other words, they were looting. They would threaten people with guns and take everything, from wristwatches and eyeglasses to everyday household goods. These were called house searches, under the pretext of looking for Japanese military or soldiers. Then Soviet civilians who had nothing began to arrive. Even when civilians and military personnel entered, my father would say that although Japan had lost the war, after seeing the Soviet people who came in and observing their lives afterward, he believed that in terms of civility, Japan had prevailed.
Matsumoto currently serves as chairman of the Chishima Habomai Islands Residents Association. It is the only nationwide public interest incorporated association composed of former residents who were forcibly removed from the Northern Territories and their descendants.
From the beginning, the slogan we have consistently upheld is the return of all 4 Northern Territories. The organization was established in 1958, and we have continuously carried on the movement, demanding their return since then. In practice, this has meant gathering signatures through various events, placing particular emphasis on petition drives, and engaging in activities to raise awareness. We share our stories by visiting elementary and junior high schools, and speak to the general public so that more people can learn more about the Northern Territories. That's what we've been doing all this time. Naturally, the number of people in the organization is decreasing. It's now more than 80 years after the war, approaching 81. We're concerned that people are forgetting about the Northern Territories issue. So we believe we must renew our efforts and help people learn more about what happened. To do that, we need to share that our memories are not just stories told by former residents. There are also physical objects and tangible items that remain there. We need to preserve our memories of those things and places on the record and ensure that future generations can continue to advocate. Above all, we want to visit the islands freely. We want to be free to pay respects to our families and ancestors there. We want to be free to set foot in the places where we were born and raised, to walk around, and to fully experience the natural environment. That is our utmost unfulfilled hope.